Hello everyone, I'm Matt Kelly and welcome to another episode of What's Next in Compliance. Today we're going to talk about misconduct and techniques companies can use to assess your culture, your employees, your controls, to assess your risk of misconduct. I'm going to start with the fraud triangle. If you have a background in audit or anti-fraud, you probably already know it. The fraud triangle is a neat mechanism to help us understand the forces that drive people to commit fraud. So it looks like a triangle with the sides labeled pressure, rationalization, and opportunity. These three forces are what drive someone to commit fraud. First, he or she needs to feel some sort of pressure that drives them to contemplate committing fraud. Then they need some rationalization to talk themselves into the conclusion that, yes, this is fraud, but in my particular circumstance, it's so compelling, I'm going to go ahead and do this fraud anyways. And then third, they need some actual opportunity to go ahead and do whatever it is they're contemplating, and that could be paying a bribe, fixing a contract, selling substandard goods, embezzling money, signing up a customer for service he or she didn't order. There's a lot that the fraud triangle can address, and I love the idea of the fraud triangle. The three legs are all great concepts. You can use them to understand all sorts of misconduct that might affect an organization. But the problem, as you can see, is that the three sides are all equal length. That's not actually how misconduct works in the real world. Every situation is a blend of those three forces, yes, but they come in all sorts of lengths. You could have something that looks more like an isosceles triangle, where two sides are equal but the third one is not. Or you could have something called a scalene triangle, where none of the three sides are equal. The first step in my theory of assessing misconduct risk is to use the ideas of the fraud triangle: pressure, rationalization, opportunity. But for whatever situation you want to assess, try to take an accurate measure of each force in corresponding sides. So for example, maybe your company places too much pressure on employees to hit quotas. So that leg of the fraud triangle, the pressure leg, would be long. But they have a very good, confident speak-up culture. So perhaps the rationalization leg is shorter because they won't actually convince themselves that they should commit fraud. Or then again, maybe your internal controls are a mess and the opportunity leg is a mile wide. You get the idea that you have to fit that fraud triangle to whatever misconduct you're trying to wrap your head around. Now, step two is to apply what I would call the anti-fraud triangle. The anti-fraud triangle would basically reverse out against your fraud triangle. So to stop pressure, you would need culture. To resist rationalization, you need values. To block opportunity, you need controls. By now you might start to guess where I'm going with my anti-fraud triangle theory. So for example, if the employees say they face high pressure to succeed, the company may want to revisit its culture and determine how to alleviate that pressure. Where is it coming from? How can we improve it? So if your employees have an easy time rationalizing their way to misconduct, you have to invest more in ethical values. Maybe you need to improve their training. Maybe you need to weed out high-risk employees who aren't responsive to training. If opportunity for misconduct is rampant at your organization, that means you need to pay more attention to controls. So that's the anti-fraud triangle in a nutshell. It's a more responsive way to assess misconduct risk and then decide where to place your resources as an ethics and compliance officer to address those risks. That's all for this episode. I'm Matt Kelly. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you'll join us again next time.